And it's shocking, but we need to break that to you, that in the last 48 hours, Ghana's health sector is almost grinding to a halt simply because nurses who are very critical to the health system are laying down their tools. In fact, throughout the day, our reporters have been on ground giving us a national picture of what's been happening ever since the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives declared a nationwide strike. So let's try and break down the issues for you, because many of you out there have just been hearing about, bits and pieces of the actual demands. We've segmented them at least into 4 key areas for you to try and make sense of what the demand is. From this very first group that is posing a challenge to the John Mahama administration in terms of the very first industrial action that they are yet to solve. So let's get to it. Implementation of the 2024 collective agreement is what the GRNMA is putting before government for remedial measures. Now, take a look at this. Improved allowances is on the table for these nurses who say they're not receiving enough when it comes to that sector. Then there's the issue about delayed postings, which many nurses have been complaining about. Some who have shared personal accounts with me on some of the challenges they are facing when it comes to their posting. So we'll get into the details shortly to hear the official position of government on why there's delayed postings, right? But beyond that as well, some other conditions regarding compensation, issues of salary arrears, all featuring in this 13-month salary conversation, and also possibly moving into areas of regulation, because those who are coming out from school and even those who are practicing as well need some licensing issues resolved. And that's why we've been tracking all of the timeline. Take a look at it. It started, just at the end, till end of the last month upon entering June. And that's when all of the demands started with the nurses and midwives notifying of their intent to strike. Then, of course, the National Labour Commission, as you would always have it through the process, then came through trying and making attempts through the court. First off, through dialogue, which failed, and then subsequently, of course, there was an attempt to block that all throughout June, which happened on the 5th of June, just a couple of days ago, the weekend, Friday, where, of course, that decision was taken by the NLC that after negotiations were breaking down, talks were not as fluid as possible with the nurses. Of course, the ultimate decision was then to block that. The nurses and midwives denied that. They denied receipt of the injunction and, of course, proceeded with their activity, which they are carrying out now, which has entered a number of days now, with a withdrawal of outward patient department services. So which means that today, as of today, if you move to any of the health facilities, you would not be able to at least, interface with any nurse across all the public health facilities. As far as that nurse works, within the GRNMA sector. We need to break that down for you because there's a distinction. This is not nurses in general. We'll be getting into the details for you. And here it is. Here you have it. Just 23% of this total number you see here, over 170,000 nurses, represent that group of nurses who say they have all of the issues that we're talking about at the start of this program, right? So 23% of them, significant number, as though they may be 40,000 plus. You still have over 100,000 there still providing services in parts of the country. So that's why, of course, you may move to some health facilities and find nurses there. But significant number, you can't dispute this, 23% of them. And of course, you can't also be flippant about their concerns, because mind you, there are those who are in the 100,000, of course, belonging to other groups within the health sector, and yet would also have concerns similar to what this group, 23%, is doing. And if there's a spillover effect, that will entirely grind the health sector to a halt. So you don't want the 40,000 affecting or influencing over 100,000 who are still within the sector and raising concerns about that. Because mind you, since 2020, we've not seen anything like this in terms of the concerns being raised and the kind of compensation that government would have to make in terms of cash advancement or perhaps the benefit advancement to these nurses. Because in 2020, of course, compensation had gone all the way up through the roofs to some 89.12%. That was how high it was in terms of compensation concerns when it comes to the health budget alone. Now you're looking at the second highest ever since 2020, which is ranging somewhere around 68.5% where we are now. So this is no small number at all, because they represent once more 23% of the total number that we're dealing with over here. And so many have been trying as much as possible to make sure that these people do not stay home far longer than we would project, because the country itself is dealing with a nurse to patient ratio standing at 1 nurse to 600 patients. And if you're taking the 20% or 23+ % of the group that is striking now, at least we can confirm that some 60+ patients, at least today, would have been denied the opportunity of, service per nurse. So 66 at least per each nurse that will be, of course, laying down their tool throughout the whole of today. And that's how serious these issues are. We're trying to unpack them, because ever since the country has been making attempts, at least, yes, that ratio has been coming down and more nurses are being fed into the system, except to say you don't want to have more of them lay down their tools, because this downward trend could go up if these nurses continue to stay home. And that's why, of course, we are looking at all of this, trying as much as possible to bridge the issues and to try as much as possible to hear from the authorities on what they think about the concerns coming through from the nurses, because many more are leaving, and you don't want to have more joining this number, 24% of them who are already working abroad because they believe that this country is not providing enough for our health sector workers. So that's why we're unpacking all of this and trying to look behind, this latest trend, wave, first ever industrial action that the John Mahama administration is facing with regard to nurses and looking at their grievances. My name is Blaise Ogan. This is PM Express. When we get back, we'll hear from officialdom, we'll hear from the nurses, and get your concerns as well. Please stay. Well, thanks for staying with us here on the Joy News channel. This is PM Express. We're still recovering from the shock that we've witnessed throughout the country, with nurses declaring for the very first time in this administration that they will be withdrawing their services across the country. Well, what's the position of government on this? I need to point out to you, first of all, that PM Express is proudly being supported by Syntex Tank. It is strong, it is tough, Academic Times, and also the Pepsodent Cavity Fighter toothpaste. You need to, of course, hear more from them in the course of this program. But let me, first of all, welcome one man who's taking the baptism of fire, if you want to call it as such. Abdul Rashid Hassan Pelpo is Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for spending time with us here on PM Express. Are you equally shocked as I am by what we're witnessing and hearing of today?
Well, we are more than shocked. We are disturbed. We are worried that they could go into a decision of strike without much talk with us, and by just what they have done. Because I believe very strongly that if they started what they said they have started a year ago or 2 years ago, this is a new administration. We are doing everything we can to ensure we have a stable economy, we have a stable society. We work with workers to get their full support for how we can run this country. But for a moment, you hear nurses are going on strike. I had a chat with the president of the Nurses and Midwives Association president, and I was complaining that they did not have the chance, the opportunity. They did not create the opportunity for me to have an interaction with them before the strike. And I thought I informed her, I wish we had had some conversation after he had those kinds of conversation with other sector ministers or other stakeholders.
At least the intention was declared at the end of May. Are you saying that ever since that declaration from the group, you did not reach out at least to have a conversation with them?
I didn't reach out to them, but I made several attempts to interact with them and to hear their challenges they are facing. Quite recently, I invited the president, as I said, whilst I was in Geneva, invited her and her general secretary to have a conversation. Now, threats of a strike, were being made, but I knew that they were talking with stakeholders that were very close to the challenges they were facing. The Minister for Health and then the Finance Minister. But I thought that right after talking with them, I could also have the chance to interact with them.
So clearly, you underestimated the group and they took you by surprise.
I expected a formalized process by which it will finally get to me. Normally, when workers are on such a demand and they are hitting hard surfaces with it, eventually they try to meet the labor minister who would intervene and call the tripartite, kind of arrangement and have a discussion on what to do. So I expected that in that order, I would have had the opportunity to have an interaction with them and then to sit with other stakeholders and regulate and bring about some kind of discourse that would have resulted in some conclusion. So that's what I waited and couldn't get. And it was the reason why I had to reach out to them at a point when they had declared that they were going to go on strike, to complain that they didn't reach the limit of their discussions and there was a need for them to have had interaction with me. And there was a need for me to also try to work out their challenges with, especially the finance minister, starting from the health minister, before they could declare that government has failed.
Honorable Minister, I'm interested in the Geneva story. The reason for which I'm interested in that story is that leading figures of the GRNMA were in Geneva, yet they were granting interviews here on the Joy News channel, telling the whole public and the entirety of Ghanaians that we're withdrawing our services. You were right there in Geneva with them. You failed to convince them to reverse that decision.
Yeah, when I spoke to them, they had told me, they had said that within a few days they will start a strike. The meeting I had with them was reported in Ghana, all over, and I expressed my shock and surprise. I also told them to give up the strike and that I was working very hard to make sure they got what they wanted. It doesn't appear to be something that interests them. They had continued their strike action, and today we have it here. So I am thinking that they may have gone a little further in their negotiations. They may have just given us another period of time, because if for 1 year you had negotiated and for more than a year you had waited for a response, and then the NDC government is in power and you can't wait even for them to finish a 6 months period of their being in office, it was something that I thought shouldn't have happened.
Honorable Minister, that's where the challenge is, isn't it? Governance is a continuum, you say. You're a new government. You don't want to just throw away all of the blame onto the erstwhile administration when clearly you received handing over notes on the concerns of these groups. You agree that was on your table when you took over?
We are dealing with a system, and the system has its own challenges. And so we need to understand the system. You need to regulate the economy to understand what is happening. you need to ensure that in that stabilized system, you can bring in other variables such as responding to demands, workers' demand and others. If you just swallow it whole, it might go into having a total effect on the rest of government.
Okay, if I understand the point you're making, you were well aware that this strike was impending, yet all you were asking for was time. How much time were you asking for?
Just for us to appreciate what is happening, and then we come in to solve the problem.
So you didn't give any timeline to the group then?
Pardon?
You didn't give a timeline to the group then? Not
at all. I heard the health minister saying, look, we have taken note of what you are asking for. He had a discussion and a meeting with the finance minister. They have even had a combined meeting with somebody I sent there to represent them, to represent my ministry, and that it was getting close to getting an understanding of what is happening, and that eventually government will respond positively to their demand, except that they needed to be a little patient. And so I know that some work had been done on it. And I just expected that they would have been a little more patient.
Okay, you're asking for patience, a lot more time then. Specifically, and of course, a lot of water has gone under the bridge, so let's deal with it now. How much more time does government need to resolve all of these issues?
We just need to understand comprehensively what they are asking for.
Honourable Minister, you're not giving us a timeline. You have a timeline you're working with, isn't it?
But the people who would sit down for us to give them timeline are out of touch now. They have declared a strike. They are not sitting down to talk. It's not just for a single person to give a timeline. It's for the outcome of a negotiation that would take place. An understanding between us, government, and them, and then looking at the third variable, which is the environment we are working with, so that eventually we can all come to a certain agreement. They have broken ranks and they are on strike. And I was telling the president that when you declare strike too early, it distorts the flow of information. It cuts away the trends that we would have put in place, which eventually will come to a certain conclusion. Now, it is not only nurses who are having these challenges that we have inherited. University workers have the same kind of challenges. CLOSAC has the same kind of challenges. Every single now and then you have an organization writing to say we have this. So it's not just government. It's not just that government is going to tackle this problem and that will be it. We will tackle the problem comprehensively along with the others that are having these kinds of challenges of wanting more income, more consideration of what they work for. So we expected that eventually we can look at all of them and come to a conclusion that will satisfy all of them.
Right. Here's what I want us to do, because you're dealing with jobs, employment as well. That's another leg of our conversation. But let's close the chapter on this, and then we'll tie the conversation to other matters. The alternatives, you don't seem to have a timeline, as you're saying. But let's try one more time to resolve that. If you were walking into a negotiation space with this group, a aggrieved group that have withdrawn their services across the country, what offer are you making to them if you're not giving a timeline? What are you bent on telling them?
Well, first of all, let me just say that we understand very clearly what they are asking for. It could just be a single day we go and the finance minister will sign it off. But the finance minister will have to do so in conjunction with other challenges that he's facing. He will take into consideration the global factor that would demand him to take an action like that. And so that will also demand that they sit in for us to sit and come to that conclusion.
The
so it's not a question
meeting,
of timeline.
The tripartite meeting would not happen without your auspices. So clearly, you have a sense of what government's position would be. What are you negotiating for? What are you going to tell this group? At least the people of Ghana deserve to know what
we are hearing. What we are saying is that, look, when you declare a strike, it's the people of Ghana who suffer.
Honourable Minister, in terms of the solutions, yes, we've heard that repeatedly, that an early strike would not help, but we've categorized that, at least from our side at Joy News, the concerns this group is having. 4 thematic areas. Which of them are you directly solving? Which of them are you directly negotiating? What are you telling the group practically? That's what I'm asking, sir.
Practically, it's not a difficult thing to sign to the demands they are asking for. It's not any complex thing, but we will do it. We'll do it after we have a comprehensive negotiation and agreement.
Yeah, but what are you negotiating for, sir? What's government's position? What are you telling this group?
That we will respond to their demand.
And you're addressing all of them immediately?
Yes, we are responding to them. We will respond to them. The minister is going to sign the agreement, but it should have happened, unfortunately, it should have happened before this strike. And we were trying to persuade them not to go on strike so that we were close to the end of it, to the end of the negotiation, and for them to have understood clearly where we are coming from and where we want to get to. You know, you don't struggle hard to keep an economy on its toe, and one group will come, you sign for them, the next group will come, and then you throw the economy ajar, out of space. That is not going to be good for this country. It is not just that people should not feel that government is not a desire of government to make them happy. It is the desire of government to respond to their challenges to make them happy. But it's also an overriding desire of government to keep an economy that can contain them. You don't rush to destroy what you have gained because you want to satisfy one group.
Honorable Minister, you're sounding as though you care much more for the economy than nurses who are to save lives and of course, the joy of many families out there.
Oh, it's worse off when the economy collapses. You can't find money to pay nurses. You can't find money to pay teachers. You can't find anything at all. The workers are not going to earn their salary. The whole system will collapse. The economy will suck down and collapse. So what we are saying is that
the economy will collapse if you pay all of these nurses or perhaps settle part of their
concerns. If you want to say everybody's demand will be met within the same space of time, within a small space of time, you are going to face a problem. So I told you earlier that we are not afraid to sign this thing. We are not running away from the fact that we need to make our nurses happy. In fact, we are committed to doing so, and we will do so too. But I'm saying that it will be done within the circumference of how the economy is run. The finance minister has to take charge of it. He has to be very circumspect in how he's running the economy before he factors in expenditures that had not been taken care of earlier, that had not been taken care of in the budget. But as I'm saying, we need to agree, and that agreement is now intervened by the strike, so that even if we can't do it immediately, we could say, okay, by the end of the year, within 2 months from now, within 3 months from now, we would have signed it.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking, you're back to my question, sir. When will that happen? When are you estimating? At least it's not in the budget. When?
Well, when you ask me when, it is, I often will tell you that it's not just one person who will say this. We have the nurses, we have the economy, you have the Ministry of Health, you have me. All of these factors are critical in coming out to with a particular situation. But I can tell you that when you ask when, and I answered and tell you that it can be tomorrow, depending on what we agree on. It can be today.
Okay.
It's not difficult to sign the agreement. It's simply that we need to do it in perspective, so that we don't do it in such a manner without, looking at the overall picture of where we are going and how that is going to have a total effect on us.
Right. Honorable Minister, the group you say is out of touch. At least we've established some contact with some of the leading members of the group. Philemon Japon speaks for that group. He's the Assistant National Spokesperson. Thank you for joining the conversation. The Honorable Minister clearly indicating that you're taking them by surprise and also be patient. His words.
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners. I'm very taken aback if the Honorable Minister says we are taking them by surprise. and the fact that we are not being patient. I think the leadership of the association has been overly patient on these conditions of service. And since the new government came into office, we have consistently engaged them on these conditions of service. So I'm surprised that it is news to them. And the fact that they are now considering factoring this into their budgetary requirements, into their conditions, it means that they have not already prioritized the need of the Ghanaian nurse or midwife out there.
Really? Are you still with us, Philemon?
I'm with you. Did you get what I said?
Yeah, loud and clear. But if you say that it's as though you're not being factored in, I'll tell you what, your group appears to be gaining notoriety, allow me to use that word, on industrial actions ever since this government took office, and it's beginning to raise a number of questions. You were the first to have met the health minister on clearance for postings and employments, correct? This is the same group that is going ahead to declare a strike in less than 600 days, if I may say, of this new administration. Are you on a warpath with government?
Not at all. I think that let's face the issues dispassionately.
Yeah.
We have negotiated for conditions of service, and it's the same. We consider them as employees. We don't look at it whether it's government A or government B. It is a condition of service that has been negotiated, led by Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. Once we have been able to reach an agreement and signed, it means the next action is implementation. Before agreement is reached, both parties have to negotiate at length. Ministry of Finance was represented. Ministry of Labor and Employment was represented. Ministry of Health was there. And they variously took mandates from their superiors to be able to help us reach an agreement. So I'm surprised because it's only the Honorable Minister that is new. All the other workers, all the other employees are there. And let me put on record that we have had more strikes in the past in the other governments than to be in this government. We went on strike in 2020. You were here in Ghana in December, in September. It was 3 months to the election. We are not political in our quest to seek for good conditions of service for nurses and midwives. But
okay, let me ask this question. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Clearly, because you're a labor union, you're fighting for your group. Tell me, if you were a minister and you were taking office in just a space of 6 months, would you sign off allowances you're not really immersed in?
Why not? If they went through the right mandate, they went through the right approach to get it negotiated. Governance is continuing.
So there's a condition. There's a condition for it, right? If it was
exactly.
So that's what government is saying. Give us time. Let's appreciate your concerns, and then we can solve them for you. That's what the minister has been saying.
The more reason why we are here. We started in January when they came to office. We engaged them, and we gave them the details of the conditions of service. They asked for time. We gave them February. They asked for more time. We gave them March. They asked for budget to be read, and we gave them time for the budget to be read. So in April, we had exhausted our patience with our members. You should know that we as leaders have a group of people who are following us, who cannot speak on air, who cannot meet the ministry, who cannot be where we are, and we need to represent them well.
Okay, Philemon, so I get that. But here's the case. Are you receiving your salaries?
We are receiving our salaries.
Okay. The conditions you talk about, you know that you're just 23% of the entirety of Ghanaian public nurses making this claim on the new conditions. You're aware of this?
Hello?
Yes, Philemon. My point is that you're aware that in terms of the demand for the conditions, you represent just 23% of over 170,000 nurses who are demanding for this condition. You agree?
No, that's not correct.
So you tell me what's correct then.
So we have 128,000 nurses and midwives working in Ghana. And we, as the holder of the collective agreement, negotiate for all this class of workers. Probably you might have added the students to it, but we do not consider the students and those doing rotation as employed because they have not been employed by the government yet. They are receiving allowances that are not factored into emolument that we consider as permanent employment here.
Yeah, but you're holding government to ransom. I'll tell you why. There's a group within your group saying that if they had, the bargaining certificates, they would obviously not have joined the industrial action. So you agree that all you're doing is simply because you feel you have the power to negotiate, you're wielding the numbers against government, when clearly all of these members are not on board with you, practically.
No, that's not true. The group that is saying that if they have the bargaining certificate, they are rather being political and they are rather siding with government because the conditions of service we are negotiating for is not for GRNMA members, it's for nurses and midwives across the country. Those same group are the people who incite our members and incite the public that the leadership of GRNMA is not doing enough for the nurses and midwives in this country. And they go back to hide behind government to say that if they had the mandate, if you go to the facilities where the strike is intense, those same group people who said they are not going to embark on the strike action, they are not there. They are not even working.
Yeah, but they have to
Most of
obey
them,
your command then, because you're leading the group.
no, they have deferred to follow the command, but their members decided to follow the command because the members know that the conditions of service will benefit them. And so it's their leaders that are being political here.
Okay, one final one, then I hear from the minister. How much time do you have?
We don't have time at all. We have given all the time that we have. We have done all the engagement that we need to have. As you said, you rightly said, we have engaged the Minister of Health on a number of times. And they keep saying, give us time, give us a little more time. And our members lost patience and they lost trust in these meetings. And it didn't yield any results so far as we are concerned. And that is what has brought us here.
Okay, let's look at the alternatives then. Tony Goodman speaks for the Ministry of Health. Tony, welcome. So what are you doing in the meantime, knowing that government will now struggle to have our nurses in all of the public health facilities? Are you improvising? What are you doing to, as a stopgap measure?
Thank you. Good evening to our viewers. Let me first apologize for not actually coming into the studio because I accepted to be there. Fortunately, because of this issue, we are in a under crunch meeting, making sure that we resolve this matter. So I apologize. Let me say that for us as a ministry, what we have done is to make sure that the people of this country do not face the brunt of this whole strike action. That is why we have provided measures earlier to make sure that those nurses who believe that the reasons government has given to them are and have decided to be at work, we are actually making sure that these reasons are what it is. And for that reason, we pat them at the back. And to us, we want to get the Ghana police, as a matter of urgency, to continue to visit our hospitals. This afternoon, we're told that some of the nurses were attacked at the various hospitals. We got this indication. At Prestia, we're told that some of the nurses were attacking our workers from work. What we have done is what any human institution would do. We believe that our brothers and sisters from the other side will see reason with us. We have put in place a lot of measures to make sure that we bring all stakeholders together to actually discuss this matter. Just imagine that today we spent all these hours only for them to inform us they are going to have further negotiation with their union leaders, and then later for us to hear that they are not going to call off strike. It means that we have actually not respected the state institutions we have. We have not respected the various ministers who have put this meeting together and have decided to go on this tangent.
Okay, Tony, the guarantee tomorrow is that obviously you won't find nurses. I'm just interested in what you're doing next.
We have put in place other measures in making sure that the people of this country receive the best care as possible. So that strategy, whatever it is, will be reviewed by tomorrow, and the people of this country will see what we have.
Yeah, so you don't have that planned out. More and more people coming to the OPDs, they would see no nurses. People could literally die as a result of this.
Yes, that is why the Minister for Health has been putting in place a lot of strategies to make sure
that's rhetoric. I'm interested in what will happen tomorrow if I go to the hospital. What will happen? Who will I see?
We first issued a statement and give series of activities that will happen at our facility. We have said that the nurses who are not on strike should continue to provide care. We have also directed the various CEOs, Director General of Ghana Health Service, and CHAD to engage others who are ready to work. This is happening currently. We have visited and monitored the situation, and we are reviewing the situation today. And I can tell you that other strategies will be unfold very soon for us to also save the lives of our people.
Okay, Tony, tell me,
my brother, this issue about ministry, what are you doing? Ministry, what are you doing?
It's not entirely my question. I was just about going to this point, that between solving their problems and, improvising, I mean, which of them could be addressed faster to have, all of these people back to work, and then we move on with our lives?
What is important is what is currently happening. Engaging them, giving reasons why this roadmap was given. If you go into a meeting, you are given a clear roadmap regarding when this implementation will be done. It means that the employer is showing good faith. But if you say that I want it now, meanwhile, in the same situation last year told Ghanaians that government do not have money to actually implement some of the things in the collective bargaining agreement. What has happened? Is it that all of a sudden we now have money? No.
That's not true.
So, my brother.
Sorry for interjecting.
Philemon, that's the beauty of it. Okay, so here's what I'll do. Philemon, Tony, just a second.
We are 120 and above.
Tony, just a second.
We have the collective bargaining certificate. And for that reason, we have the right to do whatever we want to. No.
Tony, just a second.
When you have certificate out of good faith,
I see.
You have this certificate because the people of this country decided
Tony, just a second. Philemon, you're challenging that.
Yes, I'm very challenging that, and I'm surprised Tony is going that tangent.
Briefly do that for me. Yes, we don't have.
There is a difference between negotiations of conditions of service and implementation. They are two different things. You are trying to mix the two.
Were you giving a clear roadmap on when your issues will be resolved?
No, they only told us that we should go and call off the strike, and the fact that they are prepared to implement the conditions of service in 2026. Who does that?
Tony, that's the timeline you're working with next year.
My brother, you see, this agreement was agreed upon last year, was signed off last year. And then they decided to also play with this whole collective agreement, and it wasn't implemented. Then later they themselves went to court. Can you imagine, or could you imagine that this particular document did not find expression in our first, what do you call it?
Tony, he's put out the figures. He's saying your roadmap is 2026.
I'm saying that this particular document did not find expression in our 2025 budget. the previous administration did not see reason to add this.
Tony, did you give
Even
a timeline? Did you give a timeline as a ministry? Did you give a timeline as a ministry that you will resolve this in 2026?
No, I am not even looking at the what timelines were given.
Yeah,
because
but timelines are very important. If I'm on strike over conditions and you're telling me you resolve that strike, the conditions in 2026, you're telling me invariably that your concerns,
My brother, they were given various scenarios. They were given various proposals were made.
You didn't give 2026?
And then they left. They left and then said they were going to consider the proposals and get back. As we speak, they have not come back to us to tell us that the proposal is good. It is not good. For us to only see it in the media, that they are not ready to accept the proposal. They think that it is not a good proposal. Let's say that this document actually came into full force just about January this year, which means that it's not in any of our budgets. It's not found anywhere.
Tony, did you give 2026? Did you give 2026 as your deadline? Okay. Well, gentlemen, just hold on for me. What I want to do now, let's give the final take to the minister, because he's saying that, well, it brought us on health, on finance, and all of the other sectors. But Minister, the compensation rates are going up, especially for the health sector. You look at their budget and the consumption in terms of compensation is going up by some 60+ percentage points. We're going into a very unsustainable area, you agree?
Yes, indeed. I just suspected that government is properly understood. You have been in government just in January, the same January before offices, you take over offices completely and take over the total economic system. There's a demand on you. There's no budget yet. The first 3 months passed, you're preparing budget. They came to say that you are delaying. Delaying in doing what you don't even have a grasp on. And then once the budget is read and you move 2 months into time, then they say, look, if you are not working hard, you are going on strike. Remember, when you take over the administration of governance of a state, there are various dimensions you need to measure before you can go ahead and take tough decisions. And we just expected them to understand that you may have negotiated this in the last administration, but this is a new administration.
Yeah, Honourable Minister, tell me how an average nurse out there will agree to a 2026 timeline when they're asking and fighting for their conditions of service this year?
The average nurse may have to understand that we do not have a government where everything is available, and that you make efforts to create wealth before you can spend it. If you don't make that effort to create the wealth and you want to spend, you overspend. So we will sign this agreement. It could take retrospective effects. It all depends on how we negotiate. You must understand that government doesn't dislike nurses.
Honourable Minister, you seem to be very diplomatic about this, but I'm being direct about it. 2026, yes. Are you being fair to the average nurse? If you tell me, if I'm negotiating with you, and you tell me that my concerns can only be addressed after next year?
Very fair. The negotiation is about give and take. It's not just one side saying, we want it 2025, we'll get it 2025. You are negotiating with somebody who would have to give. And before the person is able to give, he would have to also look in the house to check whether there is that capacity to do what you want to do. So when we negotiate, we have two positions. And I would have even expected that we come to a middle level. But to insist on each side, 2026, 2025, then there is non-compromise. So I expected that because they know we are a social democratic government, we care for the people, we want to see a strong working force. It is part of our definition of governance. And we want them to expect that we will be working with them. But it will be out of place to be compelled to do something when others are also waiting to get the same thing. Then you will have a system disorganized, disrupted, and it's going to have a big problem in the totality.
I see you are looking at the broader picture, so let me get into it then. Is that to signal that government will be renegotiating conditions or perhaps revising the single spine salary structure?
No, none of them is on the table at this very moment. At this very moment, it's very specific to what nurses want. They have stated what they want. We are looking at it, and we will eventually come to a conclusion when we can tackle their specific issues, which is what I want to assure them, that government is not shying away from it. We are committed in doing it, and we will do it also, except that it shouldn't be like these are enemies of nurses. Let's find a way of threatening them. Let's find a way of hurting the people so they can turn around and do what we want. We want a harmonious interaction and conclusion in the varied ways we have.
How then do you convince thousands of Ghanaians who are out there to believe that you're working in their interest when indeed a government, even at the height of austerity, there was debt restructuring, there were severe issues with our finances, and yet the government signed off these conditions to the nurses? That's someone working in the interest of nurses and, by extension, good public health care. How do you convince us that you are working in our interest when the nurses are still sitting at home?
If you ask them when they agreed to this, and it has dragged on to the following year when they lost the elections, when the past administration lost the elections, they'll tell you it's about 6 months since they started and saying they have agreed. You know, it ended up in court. It ended up back at the table of the ministers, and eventually they didn't sign it. So we have come and we are assuring them we will sign it. But let us stabilize the system before we go on to sign.
We just have about 10 seconds to go. You're basically asking the nurses, go back to work. I'll sort you out next year.
Please go back to work. We are working on your thing. We will definitely work on it. Don't worry about the fact that there is a little delay, but we will make sure it is done.
Okay,
that's what I want
to use that political rhetoric. It's in the pipeline. Thank you, Honorable Rashid Pelvu.
Yeah, thank you so much
for spending some time with us here on PM Express. What a night it has been. Apologies, Philemon, and to you, Tony. We're unable to continue from here, but it's clear now what the situation is. We'll wait to see what will happen tomorrow at all of the health facilities. PM Express on Joy News with me, Blair Sugan. We'll see you again. Until then, log on to myjoyonline.com.